Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:07 on O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in today. Coming up at 8:35, Sean Carney. He's president of 40 Days for Life. There was a man caught on video brutally attacking pro-life protesters, and he got a slap on the wrist by the judge. We're going to dive into that story coming up at 8:35. It's Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
Joining us right now, as he does every Monday at this time, the former U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, legal analyst Joe DeGenova. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning.
Where to begin? I think I'd like to start with today's press conference. The president at 10 a.m. will be addressing the ongoing criminal problem in Washington, D.C. and the quality of life issues, where he is bringing in FBI, it appears, and National Guard troops to help with the fighting crime and youth violence in particular. How much power and leeway does the president have here with regard to troops and federal law enforcement?
The president has quite a bit of leeway. He has emergency powers which he can invoke to allow him to actually take control of the Metropolitan Police Department. That's part of the Home Rule Act. There were provisions that were put in the Home Rule Act in 1973 to account for situations like this. But here's the problem. The problem is a mayor and a city council who really don't want Donald Trump to be president. There's nothing they can do about it. And now they're trying to figure out a way to accommodate him without harming home rule. One of the things the president should propose today is a 2-term limit on any mayor for the District of Columbia. There are no term limits in the Home Rule Act. They need to put them in. Congress, if it does nothing else, must limit the mayor of the District of Columbia to 2 terms. If it's good enough for the president, it's good enough for the mayor. But the president can deploy troops. One of the things he needs to do, the United States Attorney's Office is very short-handed. I spoke with Janine Perot about the office. She's desperately seeking an increase in the number of assistant U.S. attorneys. It's easy to get the FBI, the DEA, the ATF, the United States Postal Inspectors, and the National Guard to do the president's bidding. They work for him. So it's a question of how you deploy them and how you use them. But it's all important. It all needs to be done. And then Congress, if D.C. doesn't act, needs to amend the D.C. charter and impose stricter laws on juvenile criminals. The biggest problem the D.C. faces now are courts and a mayor and a city council that don't want to believe that juveniles can kill people, which they do every day.
Joe, it's so interesting. The mayor does sound a bit nervous, but she also sounds like she really wants to work with the Trump administration and Trump himself, and perhaps that's because she is nervous. But it was interesting. We just played a clip before in the last hour where she said we need more prosecutors and we need better jails. We want to redo our jail, actually. Quite a departure from the defund the police rhetoric that we heard just a couple years ago. Is any of this well-meaning? Does she mean any of this? Or is this, like you said, just trying to placate Trump because they want to preserve home rule?
Well, this is episodic rapture. She's in the moment. She's saying things she needs to say for political stability and to get the support of the people in the community, although she doesn't have to worry about that, given the demographics of the district and the politics. She's worried about the president and Congress and their power over the city. The bottom line is that she's saying the things she thinks need to be said that will placate the president. She knows that the president has vast power and can do things to make things better, and yet at the same time make her look impotent. I do not trust Mayor Bowser. I think she's a total phony. She says what she has to say in any given moment. I remember when I was a U.S. attorney, I had to deal with Marion Barry. At least I knew what he was like. I understood him. I knew that he was completely dishonest and unreliable and a disaster for the city. But in her case, you have this pretense of the school marm, and it's nonsense. And as I said, if the president wants to do something really nice, he can put a 2-term limit on the mayor of the District of Columbia and have Congress enact it.
Let's get an update here on the Russiagate story, Joe. If you could, just because we've been covering it so much, I feel like you and I have been talking about this literally for 10 years. And we keep getting new releases, new declassifications. But I often hear people in the media on CNN or the broadcast network say, oh, sure, we see all of that, but where's the crime? Where's the crime? Can you re-update people? Because they need, our listeners need this ammo when they go to the office and they have to, argue with the liberal in the cubicle next to them.
Well, first of all, the fact that people are frustrated is understandable because these crimes have been sitting around in plain view since 2016. Those of us who understood this, who were former prosecutors, started analyzing the situation involving the president right at that time and told the public here on WMAL, on your show, that the president was the victim of a conspiracy to deny him his civil rights. These are the old post-Civil War laws designed to rein in the Ku Klux Klan. I had a speech I used to give right after all this started in 2016, and it began this way. The FBI used to spy on the Russians. This time, they spied on us. And that's exactly what happened. James Comey and others conducted a conspiracy with Brennan Clapper, Barack Obama, and all people in the Justice Department to deny Donald Trump his civil rights as a candidate, as a president-elect, and as president of the United States. There is simply no doubt, I underscore no doubt, that the president was the victim of criminal activity by people in the FBI, the DOJ, the CIA, and other government agencies, as well as private citizens. I think people need to be paid very close attention to Hillary Clinton's role in this, and that of Robbie Mook and a bunch of other people. Just go back and pick up one of the early books called Shattered.
Yes.
It was the first book that came out about the Hillary Clinton campaign. And in it, they describe a meeting where Robbie Mook and Clinton and others describe how they're going to try and cover up the email scandal and the loss in the election by claiming that Donald Trump falsely was an asset of the Russian government. This has been around for everyone to see. And for people who go into their offices and people deny this, tell them to pick up a book and read once in a while.
Thank you. Yeah, I talk about that all the time. It's right there in that book, Shattered, where they have a meeting right after the loss, and they're like, oh, how are we going to explain how we lost this guy? And they immediately said, well, Russia. We're just going to blame Russia. And boy, I mean, again, the media can pick up on it fine. But suddenly the president of the United States telling his intelligence community to basically run with that and dismiss the actual intelligence that suggested that Putin didn't give a hoot who won the election. But suddenly the narrative was Trump was Putin's puppet.
Well, and absolutely. And people have to remember this is very serious. Barack Obama supercharged the Russia hoax conspiracy in the Oval Offices on a direct order right after the election to supercharge a fake intelligence community assessment of the election. Barack Obama, first of all, he doesn't have immunity for everything. Let's remember what Barack Obama has immunity for. He has absolute immunity for core functions of the presidency. He has presumptive immunity for other official acts, and he has no immunity for private acts. The question of whether or not when a president of the United States, Barack Obama, tells people he wants to redo an intelligence community assessment in order to change the result, not find out what was going on, but change the result to smear an incoming president, that is not an official act. It is not a core act. But even if he gets a ruling that he was presumptively immune, he has continued, along with others, since he left office, to further this conspiracy to destroy Donald Trump's office. That is still a continuing crime, and Barack Obama is right in the middle of it.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Let's pick up right where we left off there. J.D. Vance, Vice President of the United States, appeared on Sunday Morning Futures with Maria Bartiromo yesterday, and he talked about the Russian collusion hoax. Take a listen to what the Vice President said.
I absolutely want to see indictments, Maria. Look, of course, you've got to have the law follow the facts here. You don't just indict people to indict people. You indict people because they broke the law. But if you look at what Tulsi and Kash Patel have revealed in the last couple of weeks, I don't know how anybody can look at that and say that there wasn't aggressive violations of the law. What they basically did is they defrauded the American people in order to take Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign talking points and turn them into intelligence by defrauding the American people, defrauding the intelligence agencies, lying about what the intel said. They would take something that supported a Hillary Clinton campaign talking point, and they would overemphasize it and exaggerate it. They took anything that actually contradicted that narrative, and they buried it deep. And through that, they actually laundered Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign talking points through the American intelligence services. That's a violation of the people's trust. That's a violation of what our intelligence services should be doing, and I absolutely think they broke the law, and you're going to see a lot of people get indicted for that. Here's the thing that should really bother the American people. What do you want our intelligence community to be doing? I want them to be catching bad guys. I want them to be making sure that terrorists aren't going to kill innocent American civilians. I don't want them laundering Hillary Clinton's campaign talking points into the American media and giving them this air of legitimacy. It is sick. And it's disgusting. It hurt the intelligence community, it hurt the American people, and it hurt the first Trump administration. We've got to have consequences for it, or we're just going to see the same play repeated again and after again.
There you go. That was forceful and very thorough.
So perfect.
Yeah.
And I think that is really good to hear, because I think there is and I include myself in this, a level of impatience going on. What's going to happen? When are we going to see this? You know, you hear me on the radio sometimes going, "Hey, why isn't this treason?" Right? It's just, and part of what fuels that is I am so angry about what happened to Trump and the Trump administration during Trump 1.
Yeah. No, you're right. And I think that what he said there at the end there, which is, fundamentally, because I know a lot of people in D.C. sort of roll their eyes and say, well, yeah, of course, that's politics. No, this is the CIA. This is the FBI. Yeah. They're supposed to be looking at bad guys. They're supposed to be stopping terrorists. And you, Julie, I love talking to you about this because you were working on Capitol Hill post 9/11 when the Office of the Director of National Intelligence was created. Yep. The Patriot Act was being debated, and there were a couple of voices in this town, few and far between, and I dismissed them myself, mea culpa, that said, oh, well, we're giving all of this power and all this authority to the government. What if they use it politically against us, or they use that intelligence power against their political enemies? And we're like, oh, come on.
No, and it was also, I remember Lieberman and several other, and there were some members of the right on the right that were concerned about this, and the attacks on them for suggesting that this would happen, and you're attacking the FBI and you're attacking the CIA, it was almost this sort of like you're unpatriotic, because look, at that point we were in the war on terror, and the CIA was really putting themselves in danger, and anyway, so boy, I dismissed those thoughts. I thought it was unpatriotic to question these agencies.
Yep. No, you're right.
And there we are.
Because that's what they said. I mean, look at when this story unfolded and Trump would start attacking James Comey and the FBI, the media, how dare you denigrate the FBI?
They did a 180. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. J.D. Vance, more from J.D. Vance. He was asked to chime in on the president's plan to redraw the census here based on some erroneous numbers from the 2020 census.
And the other thing that we talked about, and I didn't even realize this, Maria, until a couple of years ago, that for apportioning representatives, you actually count illegal aliens. So even though illegal aliens theoretically are not supposed to vote, we know sometimes they do, you still count illegal aliens for congressional apportionment. So California has way more House seats than it should because they have such a high population of illegal aliens. So they get rewarded for welcoming illegal aliens into their state, giving them federal benefits, actually asking the taxpayers of of states like Ohio to subsidize them. And then those same taxpayers in Ohio and Indiana and elsewhere, they have fewer congressional representatives because of what California has allowed to happen. That's ridiculously unfair, and the only real way to fight back against it is for us to redistrict in some ways as aggressively as these hard blue states have done. And the other thing
that's a great point and important is that language. He's so good at
he is
honing in on finding the right words to describe something. California is rewarded for welcoming illegal aliens into their state and not enforcing the law and not cooperating with ICE. They get rewarded with all these congressional districts and apportionment and money, and taxpayers in other states who follow the law have to subsidize California for their behavior.
It is not fair, and when the never-Trumpers and the Democrats make fun of Trump supporters with the line, but he fights, you and I have talked about this on the show multiple times. He is fighting for fairness, and when you have a state that's 40% for Trump and there's one representative in Congress, that is unfair. I'm glad he fights.
By the way, this is a tale as old. You know, we're talking about reapportionment and census and all that. This literally goes back to the drafting of the Constitution, because you remember the slave states, run by Democrats, they wanted to count every enslaved African as part of their congressional apportionment. And the northern states who didn't have slaves said, well, hell no. They don't have rights. They don't have to pay taxes. They don't vote.
This is one of the most misunderstood things about our Constitution of everything. That is one of the most. It is used as a battle axe against conservatives.
Yeah, the 3/5 number.
Yes,
but that was the compromise they came up with. But understands that it was the same scheme. We get these. We're going to import people. They're going to do our cheap labor for us. They're going to do our slave labor for us, and we get congressional representation. It's the same old songbook that they sing from.
Just as bad.
Exactly. It's 7:24.
Coming up, we'll have more on the Russia collusion hoax. Keep it here at 7:30.
WMAL FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
7:37 on O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here. Coming up at 8:35, we're going to check in with Sean Carney. He's the president of 40 Days for Life. Find out about this man caught on video attacking a pro-life protester and then getting a slap on the wrist by a judge. Open season, I suppose, on pro-lifers. That'll teach them for praying and all that protecting life stuff. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
The nerve of that guy.
Right? I am told, by the way, that at the very end of the Joe DeGenova interview, we had a technical glitch here. It was on my end, on my connection, and I apologize for that. I promise nobody's censoring Joe DeGenova. In fact, I think you heard Joe just fine right up at the end. We just didn't have our usual comedic closing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Where
get it together,
I say
Larry.
Something stupid and he handles it with aplomb. Yes, I apologize for that. If we could just revisit the redistricting story quickly, because there was quite a bit of activity over the weekend on this, especially on the Sunday shows. I'll start with the Politico headline here. I kid you not, this is accurate. This is their headline at Politico. Democrats try to separate their tactical use of redistricting from that of Republicans. You know, it takes a keen eye,
tactics.
But if you really look at it, you might see the bias. You might see that this is a little, Are you kidding?
It is just wild. What a headline. Tactical use.
Democrats try to separate their tactical use. And by the way, it's all premised on, the real problem here is that Republicans are calling Democrats out on, their hypocrisy.
Yeah, the real problem here is Republicans have finally gotten wise to us and is using our tactics to fight fire with fire. That's the real problem here.
Meanwhile, take a listen to this. Governor J.B. Pritzker appeared on Meet the Press, and Kristen Welker, I guess we have to give her some credit because she couldn't ignore the elephant in the room. No offense, Governor Pritzker. because he's become a leading spokesperson, railing against Texas for redistricting to help Republicans. And people are like, dude, look at your map. He literally just did this in his state.
I mean, just take a look at the map. Everyone should just take a look at Illinois and then listen to this guy, because this is not who you want representing the idea that it's unfair what Republicans are doing.
Right. So here's the exchange with Kristen Welker's cut 3, please.
Perfect model for everything that can go wrong with redistricting. And I guess the question is, you talk about preserving democracy. How do you preserve democracy if you're using the same tactics that you've criticized Texas Republicans for?
But as I say, what they're talking about is a distraction. The reality is that the violation of people's voting rights is what Texas is attempting to do. That's what's wrong with their efforts right now. And the fact that
So if you point out my hypocrisy, that's a distraction. And when Texas does it, it violates voting rights. When Illinois does it, it's like, hey, it's just politics.
It's just tactics, Larry. Just tactics.
Tactics.
And I know you're probably going to play it, but the Eric Holder interview as well, where and I don't mean to get ahead of the clip.
No, we'll go right to it. Eric Holder was asked about this. Eric Holder basically says, gerrymandering is a threat to democracy, and that's why we have to do it.
Yes, and it's just temporary. It's just it basically, he said, temporarily doing bad things.
Take a listen. It's cut 1 here.
Let me ask you, how can gerrymandering both be a threat to democracy and also the way to save it?
Well, there's no question that gerrymandering is a threat to our democracy. It allows politicians to pick their voters as opposed to citizens choosing their representatives. But we are now in a situation where we find ourselves where authoritarian moves are being made by the White House through various states, Texas most prominent among them. And there has to be a response to that. What I've said is that we have to protect our democracy now if we ultimately want to be able to save it. And so taking the reasonable steps that have been proposed in California, I think it makes a great deal of sense in this moment. A temporary way in which to respond to that which is happening in Texas.
Moment is like one of their little buzzwords now that they use, in this moment. Now, you may be wondering to yourself, Julie Gunlock, why would they drag Eric Holder out? He was the Attorney General, back in 2014, I think, was the last time he served. So it's over 10 years. Why Eric Holder? Well, funny you should ask that, and thanks for asking it. He heads up an organization called National Democratic Redistricting Committee. How about that? And when asked, in the federal form, and thank you to Governor Scott Walker for pulling the 990 form for tax-exempt organizations, it says, describe the organization. This is Eric Holder's organization. Here's the description. What are the activities? Favorably position Democrats for the redistricting process.
For those, okay, so the organization exists to get Democrats elected. That's all it does. And
and before you think, they formed this to fight back against Republicans, no. It was 2017.
Right. And
2017 is what it was formed.
You're so speaking inside baseball here, because for those who are not aware of what a 990 is it's basically your documentation, your tax documents. I have a good friend. I know she's listening right now, and it's her hobby to look at 990s. Talk about DC Insider. But it really, you have to put down things like, what the mission statement of the organization and what you pay people. Let me say, for these nonprofits, they're public. You have to put them out there. Could anyone from these news organizations have looked this up before they interviewed Eric Holder? No.
Eric Holder, since 2017, has run an organization specifically designed to gerrymander states to kill Republican seats and create Democrat seats. That's what he does. And now they bring him on to be the voice of reason. To be, what are we going to do about what these Republicans are doing? Oh, it's terrible. Yeah, that's why we have to do it. He's been doing it.
Yes.
Left and right. Well, left and further left is what Eric Holder has been doing. Barack Obama's wingman. It's 7:43.
WMAL's Vince Colonnese, weekdays at noon on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
You've been highly critical, obviously, of Trump's foreign policy generally, and specifically on this case. Does he deserve some credit, though? He's had a string of what seemed to be legitimate foreign policy successes. You had the Azerbaijan-Armenia deal that was announced at the White House. He helped broker the agreement between Congo and Rwanda to stop the fighting there. He also helped to broker the agreement between Cambodia and Thailand. I mean, they're talking Nobel Peace Prize. I don't expect you to endorse the Nobel Peace Prize for Trump, but doesn't he deserve some credit for all of this?
All right, so that's Jonathan Karl on ABC's This Week with David Brinkley, but now Christiana Amanpour replaced by George Stephanopoulos, and I guess substituted by Jonathan Karl. But you know what I mean. It's the ABC version of Meet the Press. Jonathan Karl's question, laying out all of those foreign policy successes, the peace agreements, these countries that have been at war for years, including Armenia and Azerbaijan. And the real story here, Julie, is the person he was asking the question of. You already know, but if you asked anybody, you get a foreign policy expert on to talk about Trump's successes, who would you book? Who would be the go-to guest there?
Well, for these guys, find the most anti-Trump TDS suffering individual. And they found him.
They found him. They got Ambassador Deep State to come on with his mustache. It was John Bolton. Bolton.
I guess John Brennan wasn't available. So they're like, we'll just go with the other John. There we go.
Seriously.
Seriously.
John Bolton, he was National Security Advisor for Trump for what, a minute and a half?
Yeah.
And I mean, with all due respect to Ambassador Bolton, it just doesn't seem like he has not really been in the game, shall we say.
Well, he is a perfect tool. He is a useful tool, Larry. That's all they want him for. And he knows he needs to keep that up to get booked.
That's right. He serves the purpose for ABC News. So here's Jonathan Karl. He knows exactly what the answer is going to be.
I also love the question. Some of the credit. Doesn't he deserve I love some of the credit.
Doesn't he deserve some credit for all of this?
Barack Obama won a Nobel Peace Prize for doing nothing.
Understand that Jonathan Karl knew that John Bolton was going to just dump all over Trump on this thing, and so Jonathan Karl gets credit for being devil's advocate. Well, he did do this and this and this, so doesn't he get some credit? And but knowing exactly what he was going to get, and he got it. Here's Ambassador Deep State, John Bolton.
Well, I don't think what he has done materially changes the situations in any of those circumstances or several others he's mentioned, like Pakistan, India, where the Indians, not just the government, the entire country, are outraged that he tried to take credit for that. In Thailand, Cambodia, he simply threatened tariffs. If they didn't sign a deal, they've signed a deal. Nothing has changed. And the real kicker in Azerbaijan, Armenia, was the Russians allowing Azerbaijan to take control of Nagorno-Karabakh in the past year. So I think what Trump has done is make it clear that he wants a Nobel Peace Prize more than anything else.
There you go. That's
exactly what John Karl was. This is how these Sunday
shows work, man. This is how these shows work.
They didn't have John Karl on screen, but he was beaming with happiness.
Yeah, that's right.
Applauding.
This is, and again, listen, it's funny. Everyone's like, Nobel Prize, Nobel Prize, and I get it, and I think that there's a case to be made there. But at the same time, as long as Yasser Arafat and Al Gore are winners of the Nobel Peace Prize in good standing, and as you mentioned, Barack Obama for literally doing nothing, the Nobel Peace Prize is as valuable as a trinket you win from some carny that comes to town.
That's right. That's right.
It's 7:53.